Hey there my dudes, I am Laddie and welcome to my transition.
I'll be last when you come home. Never know what to do.
I'm at a point in my life where I know who I am, I know who I want to be, and I'm 1 year on testosterone. I am where I have always dreamt of being, and I am happy, but it hasn't always been that way. I was born on Sunday the 13th of June 1999 in a small town on the south coast of England, with a mother Wendy, my older sister Hayley, and my dad David. I was a nice little addition to the family, a new girl, and everyone was excited to see how I'd turn out. My dad was the one tasked with choosing my name, and after a lot of thought, I think he came up with a really pretty one.
Alright, Tia. Tia. Hello. Tia. Tia. Hello. Hello.
As I grew up, I definitely became more adventurous. Some would say more of a handful. I guess I even knew I wanted to make videos all the way back then.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Tia. Happy birthday to you.
I had a medium-sized family. We were all kind of mundane but kind of crazy at the same time. My dad was such a tech guy, he filmed everything, documented my entire childhood, and recently I found the videos, archived and dated in chronological order. So, here's my story. They sent me to a private all-girls Catholic convent school on a hill in the middle of nowhere. It was called Studley, but it was practically Hogwarts. I love technology, just like my dad. I was a nerd, but also loved playing dress-up. When they asked, I used to say I either wanted to be an astronaut or an actress.
Tia, you got some to take to school? 2 boxes of those cakes to take to school.
2?
Yeah, 2 packets.
Oh, 3 packets. There's hundreds of girls in my school.
Yeah.
And even though there were hundreds of girls in my school, I didn't feel like I really fit in with any of them. Because let's be honest, I was, and still am, a weirdo.
Can I do it?
Yeah. What do you want to do?
Smile.
Smile? Of course you can smile. Smile. You're on camera.
Is she on? Can you just do the camera?
I'm turning the cameras on now, Tia, right now. One more way, girls. Now.
I was younger, shorter, and less developed than the other girls, and spent a lot of time by myself. And due to my hip dysplasia, I even ran behind the rest. My parents had teachers keep an eye on me because I was just so different. I didn't mind wearing dresses, guess I looked and acted like you'd expect a girl would, but they still never got me. I still stayed in that private school for many years after this, but by this point I'd started to realise it wasn't right for me. I love physics and the sciences, but the convent limited what I could be taught about the universe. Plus, since I could remember, I always liked the other girls, and their brothers too, and I liked to always play a boy, the dad, or the uncle, or the prince, or the king, when we play families, and there just wasn't any place for that in the convent. The area was so isolated I didn't get to see much of what the real world was, let alone find out who I am.
Perfect prince. I'm the king and the prince.
And when my dad found out how limited that education really was for me, we decided, as a family, it was time for me to leave. At the end of year 7, when I was about 11, I finally left the convent and was homeschooled until we found another place for me to go. And with a new member to the family, my cat Lucy, we finally found a secondary school. Now, I'd never seen so many boys, piercings and vibrant hair colours in my life. By the time I'd made it into the real world, the dreaded puberty had well and truly started, but luckily I was in a place where I'd finally heard about LGBT people, and I soon came out as bisexual. I always knew I was, but I just never really had a word for it. After a short stint with acting that I've always loved, I started growing more and more into myself. I went on my favourite, most memorable trip to Florida. First time on a plane and first time in America, where I did the astronaut training experience at NASA. I won the position of the commander of a fake shuttle landing by landing the simulator the best, and realised my dreams of one day moving to America to work in the space industry. But as I grew, I felt more awkward and trapped by puberty, as I'm sure everyone else did. I gradually got over that though, as I got older. And then prom happened. I had this beautiful dress. I went with a girl as my date and had an amazing time with my friends. It was that summer, 2015, when I was 16, when I really started to grow into my femininity, but that didn't last long. I joined college, and with college came experimentation with my expression. I just started wearing rather butch clothing, and then I came out to a guy I was seeing as a lesbian. My clothing gradually got more and more masculine, and I was filming more and more for a YouTube channel that I really wanted to start, but something was stopping me.
I was like, fuck it. I've been trying to start a YouTube channel for so long, keep postponing it.
Then, with help from a supportive group of friends and my best friend Abby, who I'd known all my life from Studley, I cut my hair and wanted to be called they. It all stemmed from the time that I had this guy best friend, and I tried on his clothing, and I'd never felt more comfortable in my life. I knew of non-binary people, and in the span of one summer, 2016, I went through and tried many non-binary genders, from gender fluid to demi-boy, until, not long after I turned 17, a few months later, I would watch a Ty Turner video on his transition and burst into tears as I realised that was who I was. Now I was out as a trans man. I was going by he, and my real name, Toby, much like my YouTube persona Laddie, came shortly after. My family didn't all get it at the beginning, but I didn't really care. I started off my YouTube with gaming and art and random things until the first video where I truly spoke about how I felt in the life of a dude that's not quite a dude.
Going to be speaking to you about life as a dude that isn't quite a dude. It's gonna get emotional. I hope you guys don't cry too much.
From then on, I did a lot more trans content because the response was so positive. I referred myself to the Laurels Fund NHS Gender Clinic, but it seemed like the waiting list was getting longer the more I waited, and things took a turn when I realised I might never see the other end of the list.
Called them the other day, and they said that they were taking they were only just taking appointments that were this April.
But not everything was bad. I managed to change my name. I offered my dad the honour, but he said as long as I kept my initials the same as 10, it's fine. So I went from Tia Elizabeth Norman to Tobias Eli Norman. Plus, I had decided by this point to go private with gender care for my testosterone prescription, and it didn't take long for them to get back to me. Within a few months, I was booked in and receiving my letter confirming my transness. I got my gender marker and name changed on my passport. It was a real confirmation of the progress I was making. Soon enough, I bared all and got my ass out on camera for my first testosterone injection.
Hey there, and I want to be a real boy. Hey there, I'm Laddie. I'm 1 month on T and I want
A
to be
few
a
months
real
went
boy.
by,
I'm Laddie,
and thanks to
I'm
the
2 months on
generosity of my
testosterone
nan,
and
my
I wanna
mum,
be a real
and you
boy.
lot, to get me through the financial parts, I was soon booked in to get top surgery. It all went so fast. Another few months I'd moved into uni in Leicester to start a physics degree, and I was in surgery. If you haven't seen it, the full surgery docu-series was the funnest to film, and my reveal is an experience I will never forget.
Oh, that's worth doing, actually.
Okay, I'm just going to pop on that side. So
That looks so cool. It just looks right, it fits now. Yeah. That makes I feel complete. And then I was just counting down the months until 1 year.
I want to be a real boy.
Hey there my dudes, I am Laddie, I'm 4 months on T and
I want to be a real boy.
Hey there my dudes, I am Laddie, I'm 5 months on testosterone and I want to be a real boy. Hey there my dudes, I'm Laddie, I'm 6 months on testosterone and I want to be a real boy. Hey there my dudes, I'm Laddie, I'm 7 months on testosterone and I want to be a real boy. Hey there my dudes, I am Laddie, I'm 8 months on testosterone and I want to be a real boy. Hey there my dudes, I'm Laddie, I'm 10 months on testosterone and I want to be a real boy. Hey there my dudes, I'm Laddie, I'm 11 months on testosterone and I want to be a real boy. Hey there my dudes, I am Laddie, I'm 1 year on T and I want to be a real boy. Fuck, I can actually kind of do it again. Give me another.
my family had come around with their acceptance so much by this point, and I've never felt happier with myself. I know my transition catchphrase is the silly, I want to be a real boy, but truly, I am a real boy.